Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Wrong with the Podcast. Today, we have the great pleasure of speaking with Wolf Mangelsdorf. Wolf is a partner at Buro Happold. Trained as an architect and structural engineer, he has been leading numerous multidisciplinary award-winning projects for the firm, working with some of the world's best architects. He joined Buro Happold in London in 2002 and transferred to New York in 2017, supporting the rapid growth of the North America team. Wolf has built his reputation as a creative and innovative designer and has written and lectured widely on his project work and the role of engineers in the design process. In May this year, he assumed a role as global leader of design technology, and innovation for Buro Happold. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Today, we have the absolute delight of speaking with Wolf Mangelsdorf. He's partner at Buro Happold. Wolf, welcome.
Thank you, Pina. It was a pleasure to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. We've been waiting for this conversation for a while now. So please tell us more about yourself, your background, and how you came to where you are today.
So, briefly, my background. I'm trained as an architect, as an engineer, structural engineer. I'm German. I grew up in Germany, but then after uni, I left. I went to Japan for a little while to do some research work, and then from there moved to England. And I lived in England from 1997. Basically, I worked for a small structural firm there before I then moved to Buro Happold in 2002, and there I became a partner in 2008. And then in 2016, the CEO at the time tapped me on the shoulder and he drew some weird diagram on a piece of paper. And after a while, it was very clear that he wanted me to move to New York. Yeah, he didn't even have to spell it out. And so in September 2017, I moved to New York. We had to basically work with my partner team here. And it's been a good three and a half years, since it's actually 4 years now, since I moved over to you, And in the meantime, I should say my background really is I'm a design engineer, and I've done a good number of quite interesting projects in all over the world, really. I worked a lot with Zaha Hadid. I had a bunch of projects in London that are really kind of like landmark London projects, like Battersea Power Station and things like that. And worked on that for 15 years before I moved to New York.
Wow.
But at the same time, I've also been developing a lot of our design technology in Buro Happold, and how we deploy this technology in a context that is maybe not just your usual BIM, but really literally moves the dial on how we develop engineering technology, and in particular it's a multidisciplinary integrated engineering. This kind of I have this idea that we should build our own physics engine, right, based on the analytics that we do, and it's moving towards that thing, right, where the various different aspects of what we're doing are coming together in this kind of one environment, and that's been driving me for quite some time. And a few other. I've always had a real kind of like I always wanted to explore what can we do better, what can we do differently, and I think working with Zaha kind of did do that to me a little bit, if I may put it this way. There was always something where you would have a project where maybe somebody's you can't do that. You can't do that. And no, of course I can. And you figure out how you do it. And how you then integrate things, and how you actually drive design in such a way that it isn't just making it work or you can do it, but you work with the whole team, as a joint effort to kind of move something to a position where it's buildable, where it's doable, where it's actually then, where the beauty comes out of the fact that it's all the parts come together. I think that's when a project really sings. It's not about hiding the column because you needed one somewhere. or doing something of that. It's about embracing it and making it part of the whole thing. You need good architects, partners with that, who can work with you on that. But coming back to that sort of innovation side of things, it's something that I've always, but the exploration of how we do things better, how we do better things, right? That has always been like a driver in the background. And I've done structures built out of palm leaves and, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Or it's always been something that I think I get bored too quickly, maybe.
No, I mean, I love it. And it's so important for the industry itself, which clearly real estate, I would say, would be one of the industries that lag in innovation compared to some other industries. And it is so crucial to have engineers like yourself and architects also willing to try new things and kind of innovate within the space, because otherwise, how are we going to, come up later on with solutions that we need for the space too?
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that, I'm also very curious to hear more about C-Lab, which is a very unique being, I think, among like the engineering space in general, but which also exists under Buro Happold. Can you talk about
so C-Lab is, I don't even know how we got to C-Lab. I think C-Lab, the word is we wanted to call it Skunk Works. And then our HR department said, no, you can't do that. I don't know why, but anyway. So it maybe these days has the wrong connotations, but it is our Skunk Works, basically. It is our free space where we can try things. And I think that's sort of where it comes back to this whole innovation piece, that I mentioned a moment ago, this exploration of what we want to do, where we see the industry going. And I should say it happened in two steps. A partner of mine, Gavin Thompson, he kind of initiated this, and he ran a pilot in the UK where our headquarters is, and he called it the Pathfinders. Those who kind of, are the ones that have to go the first time into this direction. And once the Pathfinders in the first year were successful, we rolled it out. And I've always been like, on the one hand, really appreciative and saying encouraging. On the other hand, very critical of him and saying, like, well, if this is just a small group in the United Kingdom, then that's not going to go anywhere. This needs to be the whole of Buro Happold needs to turn into C-Lab. And so we started a second year, and with that second year, we have now chapters in every one of our regions. We are in Asia, in Europe, in the Middle East, in the UK, and in North America. And I'm leading that North America region, that North America chapter. I should also say that from 1st of May this year, I have an executive role in the firm leading design, innovation, and technology, which is like right up my street, basically. And that gives me now another opportunity to widen what we do with C-Lab and basically, turn C-Lab into that sort of, it's almost like the elite school for the future innovators, but giving them then the room to kind of move things really into new directions in Buro Happold. And that's been a really great journey, to be honest with you, because I had to feel this myself, right? This kind of, we have touchdowns between the various different chapter leaders once every 2 weeks. And, but there's so much you can do in a coordinated way, like the themes, but there's also, for me, at least, it was important, and I think for all of us in the end, all my co-chapter leaders, that we leave those who are the C-Labbers, as we call them, that we leave them as much space as possible for them to shape it themselves, right? So that I don't say, well, you need to research this. That's not how innovation works, right? Innovation is a bottom-up thing, right? That to a large degree comes out of somebody's deep interest in something, or the boredom or the quest to do something better, or and we need to leave the space for that. And I think that's where C-Lab really has worked, because we give the people that we elect here, or select, you have to go through an application process. Not everybody can go there. I had 11, I think, places. 11. I had 11 places that I could fill, and so I sent out to the whole of the region. Please apply. It's really targeted to be a certain group of people that are not the youngest, because we do a lot of work for our graduates. Yeah, we have a young engineers forum, and we have grad weeks, and where we bring them all together. And then we have leadership programs for those who are a little bit more advanced in their careers. And what we found as well is that something in the middle is missing a little bit. Yeah, so when you're sort of midway through your career, from senior engineer to associate, that sort of, or associate principal, that sort of bracket was that they're the ones that were invited to join. And wow, I've been really blessed. I mean, I don't tell them that, or occasionally I do. I get more out of the people than they get out of me. Yeah, it's really, really, I mean, you've seen it. Yeah, you've worked with them, and they're just fantastic individuals. It's everybody, no one's afraid to say what they think. Everybody is like chipping in and contributing. The ideas are sometimes controversial. Yeah, no one is afraid of being shot down once in a while when you say something. And all of that is just create such a beautiful, free environment where we can kick ideas around.
Yeah.
And so in the end, we run this over 2 years, and every one of the individuals will have their own theme that they're pursuing. So we're finding that balance between working in a group and exploring together the themes that we think are important in the next step in developing our industry, or where engineering is going, where architecture is going, where anything that we do in the built environment is going. And then we have individual projects where people need to develop, the C-levels need to develop in a little bit more depth. What these ideas could actually lead to. Yeah, how can we connect with clients around those? Because it makes no sense if it's just happening in the background, in the back room.
Yeah. I mean, I love the structure for so many reasons. Like, first, like it allows an organization to innovate from within. And second, also, you kind of need that lean, free spaces in a big organization. Otherwise, it's so hard to be able to find that space within your like day-to-day. And I remember, like, you once told me, and it stuck with me, where like, we'll really do our jobs at C-Lab if it becomes irrelevant. And it kind of also like serves the point of, it could sort of like feed into the broader organization's mindset, and everybody could like start contributing and really feeling that freedom as C-Lab kind of like starts impacting the culture and the work that you do also very much so.
And I think it's actually, I go slightly back on what I said, but I think in spirit, I'm still with that, right? So let me qualify. I think it's more relevant than it's very relevant insofar that we need to give particularly gifted individuals the space to do a little bit more than maybe everybody else. I don't know. I think it's having this kind of special time and space and program here is part of giving those who have that drive, and have that curiosity and ambition to kind of explore that without the project sort of like, oh, what do I book my time to kind of thing. Where I want it to be irrelevant, and I stick with that, is that I want the whole of the firm to have more of that. And what I'm hoping to achieve, and that's why I mentioned my executive role here, I'm forming what I call the innovator network across Buro Happold. You don't have to be part of the C-Lab. You don't have to be, there's no kind of prior application process attached to it. It's really open for anybody who wants to be contributing to the innovation of our services, the innovation of what we're doing, how we connect to our clients, all of that, to come forward with their ideas and be connected and actually drive those ideas. Because the network idea is very much about the giving people the chance to also connect to others that have similar interests. Where I see C-Lab slotting into that is that this is just a big booster for some who have that aptitude already.
No, definitely. And we had great experience collaborating with C-Lab. So I like seeing that culture like grow within an organization would be amazing to also like observe.
And look, I must say this at this point, yeah, my C-Lab team and me, we have also enjoyed immensely working with you, yeah, because I did feel that there is a sort of similar inquisitive spirit, and there's a lightheartedness about how you do things. I'm hoping that I can get that lightheartedness into all my people here, because I think great stuff only happens when you have a smile on your face, yeah, and really when you love what you're doing. And maybe that's my piece of advice to everybody. And I see that in your organization, how you people, your whole team has always kind of contributed and been engaged. It's just and then this other thing that you know, we always have somebody from Brooklyn and from Beirut on the call. It's actually brilliant.
Yeah, the only way to do things these days.
Span half the globe. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I think it's interesting that you like touch upon that, and I think this kind of can lead to our like next conversation. When you're trying to address problems in the world, it's like very easy to be very, you know, put down by it. I mean, it's a lot. Like we're dealing with a lot as a globe, right? Like a lot of stuff is happening, and we're bombarded with more and more content every day, and it's very easy to be demotivated and give up. And kind of, well, if like 1 is greater than 0, if we do one thing that's better than nothing, if we kind of like settle on that idea, then you always have motivation to like work on something. And I definitely experienced that with like C-Lab too. And I think, I mean, if we try to get into the problems of built environment, I think that could be like a whole day seminar. So I'm not going to get into that.
Indeed.
But I want to like sort of like touch upon and take your point of view on, I mean, clearly, and last year was one of the examples where like the built environment falls short and kind of fail us in some ways, right? And we see that happening not only in like environmental context or like well-being and health context, but also social context and inequity there. And I kind of want to focus on the underlying reasons of not what's happening out there, but I guess on like architect and engineer point of view. Like what did we do wrong in the past that kind of led to this, and what are we doing today that is not necessarily like really resolving the core issues, but just like, you know, does kind of like something washing. There's like always washing of something, right? Like greenwashing, diversity washing, whatever it is.
There's a lot of washing going on.
There's a lot of washing happening. And then we can continue the conversation on like, what do we need to change and what do we need to do more?
Look, I think you're sort of hitting straight into my pet subject. And at the same time, we how much time do we have?
We needed the abstract of a public.
No, I'm kidding. But this is big, right? So I think it somewhat starts with I think there's several kind of contributing factors, but I think a big one for me has always been, I've been observing that we build and design things from I've called it a little bit of a top-down kind of approach. Yeah. And let me explain what I mean by that. Yeah, so we develop a brief, and we look at the various kind of constituent bits of the brief. It will give us some performative aspects, yeah, how cold, how tall, whatever. But actually, from the beginning of everything, we focus on the bits that we're building, the individual physical outcome. What we don't necessarily engage with all that much is the performative outcome. And when I say performative, social performance, health, well-being, the mental and physical well-being of what we produce, the longevity of what we produce, its wider ripple effects on the environment that it creates. Yeah, not every building is part of a bigger environment that we man-make. Yeah, the cities that we build, and the outcome, the performative outcome that I'm referring to is oftentimes just a sort of, you know, more or less good luck byproduct. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can turn this around and how we can focus on the performative aspects. You heard me say earlier about, you talk about my physics engine. Yeah, and in a way, this is where this comes back to. It is about the way we work as engineers, maybe more than as architects, but as experts, is very much like we do our stuff in a very kind of contained way. We have boundary conditions, yeah, or the boundaries and overlaps with other disciplines. We call that then coordination, maybe, yeah. And oftentimes it's just purely about spatial and geometrical aspects of our work, not so much about performative aspects. And what I think we need to do, but maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I'm actually sort of seeing things going, is the more we can drive an integrated performance-based process that leads to, that drives on our design or underpins what we're doing, the more we're actually focus on that, the less we need to actually initially focus on what the physical bits are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's fiendishly complex, right? But where the real magic happens, I think, is in these kind of unknown spaces, but where you have those interfaces between different disciplines. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Simple example is if you feel comfortable in a building, isn't purely about that it's hot enough or cold enough or something. Yeah, it is about that it has the right biophilia, it has the right view out, it has the right light levels, it is conducive to social interaction, for instance. Yeah, and those parameters, to capture those is not easy. But we as designers don't necessarily know them all, right? So that means then an engagement with those who we build for, who are the users, the recipients of our work, so to speak. Yeah. And we explored that in that 15-minute city competition that we did the other day, right? There was a clear focus on engaging with the people. Yeah. And so I believe that as we move forward, stakeholder engagement is going to become more and more important. And the work that we do around defining these performative criteria is become more important, and that will have a direct impact on what we do. And overlay that with the climate challenge and issues around equity and issues around still ongoing massive urbanization around the world. Yeah, we have a big challenge. We really do. Yeah. But at the same time, I'll tell you a little story, right? So I was at a party at the Architecture Association in London a little while ago. Yeah, a couple of years ago. It was, you know, one of those where you have, I think it was graduation party or something. Anyway, it was a good excuse for a drink on their roof terrace. Yeah. And I was standing there with a friend chatting, and then a group of students approached us. And one guy was in tears, I think. Yeah, even, but he had a few, I should say, but he had beers. And he just comes to me and said, like, I don't know what you think, but this is the worst year in architecture, because architecture itself is like completely, and you know, I don't know how much strong language we can use on this podcast.
Recall what's wrong with, please feel free.
Anyway, I said, look, mate, why don't you see it positively? If it's all in the ditch, what a better opportunity for you to actually kind of pull it out of the ditch and shape something new. And he all he could say is that this was like daunting. Yeah. And I think it is a little daunting. But I do actually feel that we are at a point where architecture, the way we build, the way we do, needs to come up with new answers. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of what we do at the moment, and you know, stop me when I'm rambling. Yeah, but no. A lot of what we do here is stuff that was developed. I don't know, ideas, concepts that were developed in the 1980s, 1990s, out of I don't know, rethinking modernism and postmodernism, which had all lost its soul a little bit. Yeah, and out of that came really interesting, great new concepts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Starting from Centre Pompidou, going all the way to Zaha Hadid and so on. Yeah, but over time, I see that some of this has sort of moved a little bit, maybe into something that is not necessarily providing the latest newest answers. Yeah, it's a very successful recipe. Yeah, and those who dominate the architecture scene at the moment, these are all the 1980s names, if you think about it. Yeah, it's Rem Koolhaas, it's Zaha. Well, she's not with us anymore, but her firm is strong, and her name is really very strong still. And it's Nicholas Grimshaw, you name it. Yeah, it speaks for itself in a way. Yeah, I mean, what these firms are doing, and I'm working with them all the time, is fantastic quality architecture, right? And on the highest level. But I want to see that next generation coming along. Yeah, who is the next sort of thinker like Norman Foster was, right? I mean, what happened at that point in time was a real redefinition of what architecture should be like, and it rippled through the entire architecture world. It shaped where we are now, hasn't it? Yeah, and but it came out of a set of boundary conditions, set of challenges that people recognized as an opportunity to do something different and redefine things. Yeah,
I mean, there are so many things I want to kind of scrape out and synthesize. But so you said, going back to the start of the conversation, we start focusing on the bits we're going to build, right? And which, in my opinion, that is the first part. Once AI and robotic is way stronger than today, and where it's at, that's the first part that's going to be automated. Anyway, AI is going to tell us you can't build this like this, you'll build it like that, but you won't do it like this and you'll do it like that. And I mean, maybe AI is also going to focus on our core problems and be like, you're not serving the humanity, as like the movie I, Robot or something.
Possibly at that point we all retire. Yeah,
always right. Yeah, they're like, you just back off because
exactly.
you're not doing good.
Yes, let the robot do the work. Yeah.
But it's almost like, because that's where it seems like we're going as an industry, it is kind of clear that architects, engineers, and all these people who had this tremendous experience within the industry of building for so many years now can start focusing more on what were the core problems, really going into more diagnostic mindset rather than focusing on the details that potentially in the near future are going to be irrelevant to the industry, like the people itself, and I think, it was maybe was it 1970s where architects were more seen as thought leaders. But now I'm not saying it's in a way where you're in your ivory tower and you're disconnected with the world and you have your own opinions and you're pushing them out, but more so engineering out more the society and the world and understanding the needs and really driving solutions towards that end, because these professionals are the ones that know the problems of the industry, or one of the closest to that in the first place.
Yes.
So the innovation is going to have to come from within, or by collaborating, knowing who to collaborate with to understand how to innovate with.
Absolutely, and there's a bunch of things in here that maybe I need to kind of touch on. Let me start with the last thing that you said. Yeah, so I think there's an element of dichotomy in there. Yeah, it will become more collaborative. It has to be, because the complexity of the problems we're trying to solve, if we really want to solve them, are becoming more complex. And if we really want to widen our horizon, let's say, beyond building the bits and focus on the performative aspects in the way that I described them, then I think we need to embrace collaboration in a slightly different way. But that doesn't mean it becomes some kind of co-created soup, because design is a process that is heavily relying on opinion, on creativity, on eliminating the bad bits and getting the good bits. Yeah, it's a process that requires actually strong leadership. Yeah, and so I don't think it is something where you now sit back and you optimize for everything the same way and it'll be good. That's not how it works, because most of the different criteria that we're pursuing, that make the quality of what we're doing, they're oftentimes contradictory, right? I don't know. Yeah, if I want the best insulated room, I'd probably don't give it a window. Yeah, but the more window I have, the more light I have. Yeah, the more light I have, the more glare I have. Yeah, the better views. But also, we could spin this on forever, right? This is really, really almost stupid, simple example. But what I'm trying to say is, even if we know more about the performative outcomes that we want, we still need a strong design leadership that can drive through this process and steer the process. Also, when we start bringing in more engagement with, let's say, stakeholders and make our process more transparent, it still needs to be designed. And I think that's the encouraging thing in all of this, I think, right? I find great pleasure in the design and the creation of a building. I see that part absolutely not under threat. I think our engagement with this is much needed, but it's a little different and a little harder maybe than, getting the pencil out and drawing something and say, yeah, that's what I want, make it work. Yeah. There's a second aspect that you brought along, and you said in a few years maybe the robots and the AI can build our buildings. Yeah, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. I think this is the biggest vulnerable area of our construction industry, though, not the AI and the robots. The fact that we're so advanced in the production of the components that we do. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've worked with facade contractors that can do things that are super precise, highest performance, millimeter tolerance, all of that. But when it comes to site, it's just still being hammered together like it was like 1923 or something. Yeah, it's like 1921, let's say 100 years ago. It's by no means industrialized, and all the different attempts that we have made to industrialize what we're doing on construction sites have always led to, I don't know, these kind of weird modular container solutions that, I don't see a single one that's actually really worked, or worked to the intent, to the degree that would want to repeat it, and so I think we still have a massive challenge around industrializing this construction process. And I think one of the reasons why we focus so much on the bits is because this isn't really working.
Right.
And gets me then back to another one of my pet subjects of innovation and research that we're doing in our firm. Yeah, it is about what are the concepts, the working concepts that would really move the dial when it comes to industrializing the construction process. What makes it better? And we've landed on a few things that will be taking us way off and probably bore anybody who would listen. Yeah, but to this podcast. But it really is something that it's surprisingly simple what comes out, but the problem that sits behind it is massively complex. But we need to solve that. As an industry, we need to solve this, how we work better together, how we ensure that the components that we bring to site are actually in a state where a robot could fit them.
Yeah.
At the moment, you let the robot loose on what we're building on site, and the robot would sit there, which bit do I start with, right? And he would probably kind of not know what to do. And I think that's where we're at. So there is a big problem still to be solved, but those two kind of run in parallel, I think. So you need to solve the one and the other in parallel. And the one thing that's really interesting about this, though, is that I think computational technology, as it advances and brings in maybe aspects of AI and other opportunities to just work in multiple dimensions and multiple disciplines in more intelligent ways, I think that will help us shift the dial, move the dial and actually move things on. Because it's just highly complex and everybody is trying to simplify their bit as much as possible. I think this is the sort of theme that runs through everything. Everybody is trying to make their things as simple as possible so that we don't drown in that complexity, because it's huge amounts of data and huge amounts of information that you need to carry along in order to then come together and converge to be actually a working building.
Yeah. And this, like, all of this goes back to what you originally also said on really collaborating, but collaborating in much more integrated way rather
Absolutely.
than like, oh, we like consulted that person. No, like everybody being in the process and potentially collaborating a little bit outside the box too, and really learn from different disciplines and kind of both to address the social aspect of things and the real challenges we have around like actually the physicality of things too, in order to create better spaces or buildings. I think I want to sort of touch upon another aspect that could like, so we talked about the within industry way of like thinking and how that needs to change for a better future for the industry. And I also want to talk about a little bit about the how we talk about the industry and its outcomes for the mass public in order to have a better future. So I often, as somebody who came into the industry as an outsider, for me, it was so frustrating that I kind of like the initial feeling I remember having, it was like kind of the finance industry where I'm like, why are the conversations so high level when this is for like the people and we're all living in and being in them? And why isn't the general public really part of the conversation at all? And it feels very much, top-down conversation, like going back to your original thing. So that's why one of Sauer's biggest passion is like awareness, and it's not dumbing down the profession, it's actually making that conversation more accessible, because if there's no awareness in the general public, things will move more slowly because of this demand supply balance there. At least that's our thought. I would love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I don't actually have an immediate answer to that, and I've asked myself quite a few times why we shroud things in even like words that people don't understand. I had a professor at architecture school who once said, a good concept is the one that I can explain to my grandma in 2 words. Yeah. And he pointed out that his grandma wasn't an architect. I think that's an important piece of the story. But it always stuck with me, right? If we are not able to get our ideas, our concepts, whatever underlies our buildings across in 2 words, then, or in 2 sentences, or in a short paragraph, then we're really struggling. Yeah. And I really don't know why. I mean, the architecture profession is a little sort of like introspect, I think, at times. Yeah. So we like talking about our own work and ourselves and all that. Yeah, quite a lot. And it at times that's a bit tedious. I don't know, but I think things have also changed. I think it's or maybe there's an opportunity here that I think the general public is actually much more interested in architecture than we believe they are. Yeah. And I think there is definitely opportunity to connect. Yeah. I think what's difficult though is, and I think that comes back to the conversation around how we engage with people, is that even when you talk about architecture and you have a general interest in it, it's a general interest in aesthetics and in form and in style or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can associate that very quickly with like names. Yeah. And it moves into something that becomes almost like branded in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of skirt around the deeper issues or the conversation. And I think if we want to move things forward, then we need to start framing that conversation, and that's going to be interesting, I think. Yeah, it's not
definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's what eventually will lead to us reshaping everything. Yeah,
definitely. It's kind of like how, like when we get a new dish in front of us, maybe we compliment the look, but we don't necessarily care about the look. We're like, what's in it, right? Like, what is it made of? And this is like credit to like the younger generations and the more expectation people have around like our brands walking the walk, kind of. And I'm hoping that kind of like also grows into the industry more, where we also, I think last year triggered it a little bit, as you said, and there's more definitely towards like awareness of the spaces we're in, like, oh yeah, we need more sunlight. Yeah, like we need more natural materials. Like that is kind of, that conversation is growing, as you said. And I'm really looking forward to that turning into almost like our relationship with food, right? Like,
yes,
questioning the ethics and ingredients behind the construction and the built environment.
and absolutely. And I don't want to, just to make absolutely clear, I don't want to dismiss the aesthetic aspect of it either, right? I think the aesthetic aspect is hugely important, and that's where ultimately it comes back to what I was trying to say earlier. It is still a design decision process. It is still a creative process that needs to lead to an outcome that is performatively good, but also, or I would just say aesthetics is part of the or aesthetic quality is part of the performative outcomes, right? So and they shape our cities in a certain way. I think we relate to our cities functionally, we relate to them emotionally, and we relate to them aesthetically. Yeah, I think it's hugely important. But we can find beauty in quite a number of things. Yeah, I mean, it's a complex theme. Yeah, I was just thinking if I find a good example where I could sort of. I was cycling down Second Avenue a little while ago, and Second Avenue has bits that are brutally ugly, and I still quite like them. Yeah, because I think they have a certain feel to them, and you can just see it's where people live, basically. Yeah, it's a part that is, you get what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So anyway, that leads maybe to another thing, that we sometimes over design things a little bit too. Yeah, and leave it to a little space to grow and move and adapt over time. But that's all another topic. Yeah. I could talk for hours.
Yeah, I know, and it's such a fantastic conversation, but I slowly need to approach the end, which
I know.
is the piece of advice portion. But I do think you've sprinkled many great advice throughout the conversation. But anything you want to emphasize or reiterate for anyone who in any field that wants to push boundaries and make progress?
I think the for me, let's put it this way. For me, what I've been doing in this sometimes like a rather stressful kind of profession, the most important thing has always been that to have fun with what I'm doing. Yeah, and I think it's hugely important that we find the pleasure in the collaboration, that we find the pleasure in the quest for something new, and that we just have that we have joy in what we're doing, because I think that reflects in the outcome. I think it reflects in what we're producing, and quite frankly, it just makes life a lot more livable if you if you have fun with what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, and I think doing it for the right reasons also really helps in finding that fun, really.
Yes. Oh, no, absolutely. And I should say there isn't one definition of enjoyment that is applicable to everybody. Yeah. But that I find most pleasure, let's say, in working in teams and with groups of people that themselves have an enjoyment in the engagement with the subject matter, or in with what they're doing. That creates much better outcomes, much more, I don't know, delight than if you just do your job.
Yeah, definitely. And we want to be in that energy space too. But Wolf, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All day.
I really enjoyed the conversation. Yes.
We can just like publish as like a teaser to all the things we can like discuss for like 5 more
I think
hours.
there's lots of pointers in there of other things that we should discuss. Yeah. And maybe we have maybe that's something that between us we can explore more. Yeah. Some of those things.
Certainly.
Yes.
Any updates you want to share about, like, from Buro Happold that people should look forward to or look out for, or anything you want to share that you would add?
No, not that I can think of anything that is sort of upcoming that would be no. This is a difficult one. Yeah, I mean, we continue to work on amazing projects, and we're really blessed there.
Yeah.
And that's great news. And we're growing our team here in the United States, which has also been really good. So that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I think just keep on the lookout. Yeah, there's lots of very interesting Buro Happold stuff coming along. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. It was such a treat.
Thank you. No, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
We'll speak very soon.
And that is this week's episode of What's Wrong with the Podcast. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Links can be found in the episode description, and you can also find them on our website, podcast.what'swrongwith.xyz. If you found value in the show, we would appreciate if you could rate us and leave a review, or you can simply tell your friends about us. For more details on our guests, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to join us next week. Thank you for listening.